One other pathway people have proposed is let's use viruses to kill bacteria, and we can let the germs duke it out amongst themselves and we will be the last person standing. And this is something called phage therapy. Phage is a type of virus which infects and kills bacteria. Bacteriophage is the namesake of these phage-like viruses. Of course, viruses can infect human cells, but also there are viruses that can infect bacteria, known as phages. But it's very selective about which type of bacteria it infects. It's very specific, and therein lies the beauty of phage therapy. Viruses will only infect a very specific type of bacteria, so it won't infect bacteria indiscriminately, and then it lowers the chance that resistance is going to be developed as quickly. Whereas an antibiotic is a little less discriminating. It is more, let's just kill everything in sight. And that is how you get those mass community extinction events that then lead to selecting for the superbug that has that feature that allows it to survive. So if the right phage can be found, it can be delivered to the infection site where it will find, infect, and kill the very specific bacteria causing the patient's infection. It is a much more precise scalpel. Under ideal conditions, phages don't infect and cause diseases in humans. Phage therapy selectively targets and kills the bacteria in the patient, not the patient, and you can also leave the beneficial good bacteria behind, unlike many antibiotics on the market. Why hasn't this taken off? Firstly, making phage is a real bottleneck in terms of production. These methods for producing, purifying, formulating phage, making DNA, RNA, and protein and fats, putting them together under ideal conditions is something that needs a lot of infrastructure to do well, not to mention a lot of skills, a lot of personnel to do very well. On top of that, bacteria can also become resistant to phages, although we haven't really tested this theory to the same extent because phage therapy just really isn't that common compared to antibiotic therapy. So long-term use of phage will be able to test this theory out a little bit more. Commercial viability. One antibiotic isn't so specific in killing one type of bacteria. You could prescribe the same antibiotic for different kinds of bacterial infections, and therefore, again, the big pharma company that's making the antibiotic, they can get paid more frequently for different types of infections for making that one single antibiotic. But the phage, by definition, is going to be very specifically targeting one bacteria and one type of bacterial infection. Its versatility as a drug is not going to be as broad, and therefore you'll actually make less money on the phage therapy. So again, there's a commercial bottleneck as to how useful this phage therapy will be for antibiotic-resistant superbugs. And of course, continuing to develop new antibiotics is a necessary thing we have to do, but developing new antibiotics is easier said than done. The newest antibiotic is one called clovibactam. Will it beat superbugs, or will it join a long list of failed drugs? Clovibactam was a recently discovered antibiotic that works a little differently than other antibiotics on the market. It targets bacteria from the inside out, taking away the bricks that are used to build the wall that prevents antibiotics to get in the first place. Bacteria then have much more limited options when choosing which bricks to build their walls and cell walls, and therefore resistance is much less likely to develop. Any antibiotic over time becomes less and less effective. The antibiotic that is safe in a lab testing condition, when you roll it out to large-scale clinical trials, might actually be very toxic, very dangerous to the people that we would need to administer them to. The profit motive of big pharma isn't actually aligned that closely with making antibiotics, because with antibiotics, you take a 2-week course and then hopefully the infection is gone. But the R&D behind antibiotics is really expensive, like with any drug. Whereas if you discover a statin that you're designed to take every single day, sale of that drug is a much more reliable source of income than an antibiotic that you're prescribing every 2 weeks for a small percentage of the population in a sporadic, spread out time period. The incentive to make those antibiotics and discover those antibiotics, despite the enormous R&D costs, they're not really lined up in the favor together with the profit motive that we still fundamentally need to drive this kind of drug discovery in big pharma. What other options do we have at our disposal? We could have vaccines, and the vaccines kill the bacteria through the work of our immune system. And we're training our immune system to be able to detect these bacteria over time. Developing and designing new vaccines is also very, very expensive, and the communication around safety of vaccines is a problematic one, to say the very least.